Coming up, Education Secretary Betsy DeVos on the challenges of education in a pandemic. Welcome to another Real American Heroes Special Edition. I'm Oliver North. Our guest today, a great friend, Betsy DeVos, Secretary of the Department of Education. Secretary DeVos serves as the 11th Secretary of Education for the United States of America. Prior to being confirmed, she served as chairman of the WinQuest Group. Secretary DeVos also served on the boards of numerous national and local education, charitable, and civic organizations. She's the daughter of a public school teacher. She and I have that much in common. Secretary DeVos has been married to her husband, Dick, for 40 years, and together they have 4 children, just like the Norths do, and only 8 grandchildren compared to our 18. Secretary DeVos, thank you for taking time to join us today.
It's great to be with you, Ollie.
So, we have 18 grandkids. They range in age from college sophomore down to preschool, but all of them are waiting to get out of the house. And we, out at the farm, my Betsy's farm, we've got a kitchen table about the same size as the one I'm at. And there's been times when we've had 9 of the 18 around the kitchen table with computers, and that means granddad can't get on his computer because all the bandwidth is being eaten. When are my grandkids going to be able to go to college, go to high school, get educated, K through 12?
Well, it's a great question and a very important issue for every education leader to be dealing with, because we know the best place for kids come this fall is to be in school, in their classrooms, with teachers, with their peers, and continuing to learn. And we have seen a very uneven application this spring when everything was shut down of distance learning. And we know that for many kids that hasn't really worked at all. And the quality that many of them experienced was very lacking. So I think what all of this points to as we look at another academic year is the imperative that kids get back to learning. And that's best accomplished for most kids in a classroom setting.
Well, unfortunately, there don't appear to be a lot of options, at least here in Virginia, and where we are, our kids. I look at some of the things that are being done. Governor Hogan next door in Maryland, when his Secretary of Health, or whatever his title was, said no schools are going to be opening before 1 October, he went back and said, wait a second, if those kids have another opportunity, charter school, religious school, parochial school, private school, and they want to open, they can do so. Shouldn't that be the national policy?
Well, I think it should be. I think the fact that we have many families, many parents concerned with the options they're being provided that really aren't options or choices, it really does point to the fact that parents and families need to be empowered with making those choices that are right for each of their children and right for each of their circumstances. And we have seen the stasis of the K-12 education system that has continued to function essentially the same for over 100 years. It's coming to light ever more keenly now that we've got to be more flexible, more nimble, and empower families and empower students to find their right fit and their right way forward.
Can you tell the folks who are watching and listening to this podcast about your recent visits with Vice President Pence to schools that have reopened? How'd they do it?
Well, we've had some terrific visits, both to some higher ed institutions in Louisiana and in South Carolina, and then also with a K-12 school in North Carolina. And it's been very heartening to hear from those education leaders their commitment to putting students at the center of everything and making sure that they are addressing the needs of students while at the same time respecting their colleagues with whom they're working and making sure that everybody has the opportunity to enter a new school year with the right kinds of safety considerations and the right kinds of combinations for everyone involved. The Thales Academy in North Carolina has done a terrific job of addressing these needs. It was so fun to visit a fourth grade class. And when I asked the students there what was the best thing about coming back to school, they all said being able to be with my friends. And to a person, it was being able to be together with my friends again. And we know that that is so important, particularly for younger children, to have the opportunity to, for their own social and emotional growth and health and well-being, to be together with other kids. We're not meant to be alone, and that has, I think, been more keenly realized today than ever before.
It doesn't matter, I don't think, whether it's K through 12 or post-high school education, but we're hearing, I'm sure you hear a lot more of this than I do, but we're hearing from others that, well, we want to get our money back. In other words, what they're saying is, my tax money is still going to Fairfax County, Virginia, to support that place of those places of education, not just public schools, but private schools as well. Strikes me that something needs to be done to make sure that, well, I'll be very frank about it, that the unions cannot force them to stay closed, or the kids ought to have some other option.
No, absolutely. And I think more and more families are asking the question about, all of the investment that we're collectively making in education. And it's a promise to fulfill that investment for the kids or for the students, no matter what the age. And if the schools are not going to respond to and provide what the students need, then students and their families should be able to take those resources to a place that's going to work for them, a place in an environment that's going to work for them. And we're hearing a lot more about families that are considering getting together with several other families and doing a small, basically a micro school or a enhanced homeschool. Well, these are all very viable options that families should be empowered to make those decisions and choices and have the resources to help support them.
Clearly the president supports what you're saying, but does he really have a role? I mean, look, we pay county taxes, we pay state taxes, and the schools are run by the governors and by the county supervisors and the boards of education. Is there some role for the federal government in this?
Well, the federal government's role is really to make sure that the federal laws related to education are followed. But there is no national superintendent. There's no one size fits all approach to how schools should begin to operate again. But certainly there's the bully pulpit. And the president has been very clear in urging and encouraging education leaders to do the right thing for their students and to figure out ways that they're going to serve those students, starting with a full-time option for students to be in school in the classroom. And where there is an outbreak of the COVID virus, then you can take the remedies to address it. But that should be the exception, not the rule. The rule should be, we're going back to school, we're starting another academic year, and we're going to serve our students well. And for those places that refuse to do that, families have got to have choices. And it really does speak to the necessity to dramatically expand school choice, education freedom. And more families are realizing this every day.
You know, I've heard you speak about this issue, and that is the importance of civics and history in this new era of, I guess, the cancel culture and iconoclasm. I look at that and I say to myself, particularly given some of the nature of, they're not protests, these are civil disorder, that there's a great threat out there that kids don't understand what the various divisions of responsibility are. That's frightening to the future for me.
Well, it really is. And, by the same token, the reflexive reaction might be, well, we should implement a national civics curriculum that everybody has to adhere to. But we know that if that was attempted, it would really ultimately backfire and would not serve to really advance nationwide knowledge and understanding of our history. This is really an important issue for states and, I would argue, local communities to grapple with. And I think that a lot of states are taking this much more seriously. I know that a number of them have implemented a graduation requirement that some of the students have to, for example, be able to pass the exam that new immigrants, soon to become citizens, need to take. And I think these are important considerations and things that states and communities should be considering. But the lack of knowledge of history and civics is really concerning. And I think more and more people are paying attention to that today and realizing that we have probably been very lax in ensuring that students understand our nation's founding and our historical roots. And there's a much more focused attention being paid today.
You know, I as an historian, I look at the current events, and this broadcast that we're involved in right now is a contemporary history of what transpired, because there's no one alive today who's ever been through all of what you and government and the American citizens are going through right now, with a pandemic, disorder, civil disorder, the kinds of arson and vandalism that we're seeing. And so challenging the future with the current events, I like to ask the question, 50 years from now, when my great-grandkids are studying about this extraordinary time in history, what do you want them to know about what my friend, Secretary of Education DeVos, did about it?
Well, I hope that they will know there was someone in their past who fought very hard for them as individual students to find their right education fit so that they could develop and become everything that they are individually meant to be. And that collectively we have an informed citizenry that knows and understands what was sacrificed historically for them to be able to live in freedom and be able to focus on their futures with that knowledge and that understanding of their past.
No one could have said it better. Thank you, Secretary DeVos, for making time to be with us, providing our fellow Americans with ideas they can use in challenging times.
Well, thanks for the opportunity to be with you, Ollie. It's great to see you.
God bless you, my dear. If this Real American Heroes special broadcast has been informative, helpful, encouraging, take time now to let me know how these unprecedented events have affected you and yours. By doing so, you too can be part of this historical record of how America persevered and once again prospered. Until next time, remember, Semper Fidelis is more than a slogan for U.S. Marines. Always faithful is a way of life.